Hi. For those I haven't met, I'm Ruth Tincoff, and it's good to meet you, and we'll be here about 3 more weeks. And then we're moving to Boise, Idaho. And so one of the reasons I picked that Simple Gift song is that we're moving from central Susquehanna Valley to the Treasure Valley. So at least we get to stay in a valley of love and delight. Yeah. So this sermon combines 2 excerpts from sermons via the Church of the Larger Fellowship. They're about freedom and home. The first is from Diane Daugert, minister at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tucson, Arizona. She shared this in 2013. It's titled The Flying Trapeze and the Fine Art of Freedom. Reverend Daugert tells us about her personal experience with the circus, seeing the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey circus when she was a kid, and the Cirque du Soleil when she was an adult. And you may have been to one of those. I know the Del Vecchios were at the last performance of the Ringling Brothers circus that just closed, actually. So let me go to Reverend Daugert's words. She writes, "What captivated me the most was the flying trapeze. Perhaps my fascination was rooted in vivid childhood memories of the backyard swing set. Pumping the swing as high as it would go, then, at just the right moment, propelling my body off the seat, letting go of the chains, and for a moment or two, flying free." Feeling that? I felt something like that freedom watching the trapeze artists high above the circus crowd, gracefully letting go of their swinging bar, flying through the air, being caught, and letting go again. The sense of freedom was exhilarating. Author and Catholic priest Henry Nouwen, who wrote books such as The Inner Life of Love, once traveled with the Flying Rodleys, a troupe of trapeze artists. Their conversation inevitably turned to flying and how they could possibly do what they did. In the end, says Nouwen, it comes down to this: a flyer must fly, and a catcher must catch, and the flyer must trust with outstretched arms that his catcher will be there for him. Father Nouwen focused on Catholic spiritual needs and used this idea of swinging into the unknown as a metaphor for what happens to us when we die. He saw us as the flyers and the Catholic God as the catchers. For most Unitarian Universalists, however, the focus of the spiritual journey is on this life, realizing that heaven and hell can be conditions we create right here on earth. The lessons from the flying trapeze pertain to life, lessons in letting go, catching, and being caught. Something in us all craves the feeling of freedom. It is inherent in us, yet we allow ourselves to be deluded into thinking that security is synonymous with freedom. Truth is, the work of freedom comes with risk, the risk of letting go. Letting go is religious work. Think for a minute of all the things that keep us imprisoned, all those things that get in the way. Racism, classism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, that get in the way of us realizing the beloved community we dream of. The religious work is in finding these tendencies within ourselves and then letting them go. But letting go of deeply ingrained beliefs and fears is no small thing. Holding on to something feels better than having nothing to hold on to. Much as we crave freedom, we also crave security. Letting go of beliefs, even those that don't serve us, can feel like a free fall, a plunge into the unknown, unless we know that we will be caught, that there is a safety net. We need trust if we are to let go of all that keeps us divided from one another. Building trust is religious work. Learning that we can let go, or that when we let go, someone will be there to catch us. The role of the religious community is catching people as they fall. The fine art of freedom is knowing when to hold on and when to let go, knowing what to hold on to and what to let go of. Reverend Daugert concludes, as Unitarian Universalists, we are called to practice values that we cherish, values of peace-seeking, justice-making love, the value of extending compassion. We need to continue to let go of everything that gets in the way of freedom. Within our community, we can do the religious work of building trust. Within our community, we can begin to create the world as we wish it to be. It is ours. We can create it to be what we want, a place of peace, a place of freedom. If we are to fly free, we must learn to let go and trust that when we do, we will be caught, and we must become the catchers. So the second one. So that was freedom. The second excerpt is by Reverend Susan McGinn of Portland, Oregon. Only 6 hours from Boise, Idaho, I'm told. A couple good people live there that I know. She shared this in 2014. It's titled, "Home is Where You Park It." She frames her sermon around her personal experience of moving 30 times in 43 years. Got us beat. We're only at 10 in the past 22. This will be number 11. Reverend McGinn shares her experience of living as a family of 4 in a 34-foot fifth-wheel trailer in an RV park in San Diego, California. Now, that's not a typical experience of home. She writes, "How do you know when you are ready to become a resident, to settle in, to call it home? After all, a place is only a home because you call it that. There's nothing inherent within any dwelling that makes it home. Home happens in the individual relationship, in the space between you and that place. It is said that home is where the heart is and there's no place like home. And maybe this is true. Maybe home is where we can realize our deepest, truest selves because our surroundings inspire us to find that sweet spot between being engaged with the world and being at ease and at peace. At home, we find the people with whom we are deeply connected and inspired. People who remind us why we are here in this place, here on this land, here in this life. When we are at home, we find places to rest, and we find places to express ourselves, places to be silent, and places to be heard. We each have our own preferences, attractions, and inspirations about the place we call home. One person's place of home will be where another person will say, "Nice place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there." But are there any truths about home that are true for all of us and not just left to individual preferences? Is there anything in life that is always transient for all of us? Is there anything in life that is always permanent for all of us? The simplest response to this question is that we are all earthlings. We may all have our preferences about the particular nook that we find most inviting, but ultimately Earth is the one home that we all have in common. She tells a story about living in the Campland RV park in San Diego. So this is her experience. I have not been there. Reverend McGinn says, "I was recently reminded of what it means to be an earthling when it was unusually busy at Campland. The place was packed, sold out, in fact, with lots of pop music playing from campers and from golf carts cruising around, lots of people sitting in circles around fires, eating meals outside, greeting one another with hugs, laughing, riding bikes and scooters, nearby swimmers calling out, 'Marco, Polo.'" Yeah. It was hard to even walk through the campground because it was so full of people. I mean, this is her house, her home, right? And then I woke up very early the next morning for no particular reason. I went outside into the cool of pre-dawn to see the place so full of campers and yet so still it seemed deserted. Just hours ago, the same area was full of games and meals. But in the quiet glow of morning, there arose an endearing, simple truth. We are all just soft creatures of the earth who retreat into the dark cave of night to find rest. Somehow we all know how to keep that silence, how to protect it from one another. She continues, "Our bodies are of the earth. We gravitate towards rest and reflection in the cold seasons, just as we gravitate towards growth and activity within the warm seasons. Our energies rise and fall with the full and new moons, even when we don't know it's happening. We are home with Earth, getting familiar with our closest neighbors, those native plant beings and animal beings, our fellow Earthlings. And in this ever-evolving world, on ever-evolving Earth, amid these ever-evolving bodies, perhaps there is a love that remains a constant and mysterious presence. A love within which every breath is held and released. A love where we live and breathe and have our being in every moment, in every dimension. Reverend McGinn concludes, when we ask ourselves, what is it that makes